say, gosh, it's lucky that we don't really need you anymore because we've found ways over the past 3 years to make sure that if you leave, it won't hurt us. They're talking through their hat. It would hurt them plenty. It would hurt them beyond description. Juncker, the head of the president of the European Commission, says a debt reduction for Greece is not on the radar. Something similar from Moscovici, the Frenchman who is the European Commission economics boss, and so on and so forth. When I look at these so-called social democrats, I think of Friedrich Ebert, but above all, Noske, right? Noske was the guy in 1918, 1919 who said, somebody's got to be the bloodhound, right? Somebody's got to go out and kill the opposition. So Rosa Luxemburg dead, Liebknecht dead, not by arguments, but by death squads deployed by Noske. Or Hilferding. How about Hilferding? Big leader of the SPD in the 1920s, great friend of Brüning, and he's the one who led the opposition to Wojtyński when Wojtyński wanted to say, let's have 3 billion Reichsmarks, public works, build the Autobahn, cut Hitler off at the knees by ending austerity and deflation. Hilferding said, no, you're violating Marxist theory. How about that? So that's the use of Marxist theory that these characters have. Now, the rebellion on the sanctions is very promising because we saw that Hollande was already saying the sanctions against Russia must end. And you'll recall that Italy, even though we have Renzi, behind Renzi is Berlusconi, and that's Putin's great friend. Italy, Hungary with Orban, right, immediately attacked by the West, Slovakia, Cyprus, and there are more. Those are all countries. And again, it would be Greece, France, Italy, Hungary, Slovakia, Cyprus, who would be interested in putting an end to these insane economic sanctions. So, payments deadline, end of February, early March. Russia, please engage. And we have to recall that sometimes in the past, Russia has not done such a good job for the Greeks. I'm thinking of Stalin and the percentages deal that Stalin had in October 1944 with Churchill. Remember, Stalin said Greece is 90% British and 10% Soviet. And with that, they failed to support the Greek partisan uprising in December 1944. They said General Scobie treat it like a conquered province. And that, of course, led to the Truman Doctrine of 1947. We had a NATO coup in Greece, 1967 to 1974, the government of the fascist colonel. So some of these powers have some making up to do to the Greeks. Now, we also want to look at the dynamics of this bailout. You recall that the first bailout was contemporaneous with the flash crash of May 2010. And that imposed these austerity measures, right? Cutting the minimum wage, cutting pensions, the privatizations. Remember, Steve Forbes went over there and thought he could buy the Parthenon, that toothy geek. And of course, the idea of leaving the euro is extremely unpalatable because the drachma by itself would be clobbered in much the same way that the Icelandic kronor has been, and that would be essentially very bad, right? The drachma would become virtually worthless, and you would have some idea of extreme inflation, maybe even hyperinflation, as that was attacked. Just a useful way to discuss this. There is a proposal saying split the euro between the north, dominated by Germany, Holland, Scandinavia, and the south. And somebody said, well, what's that going to do? Germany, you actually need Italy, Greece. You need the pigs, right? Portugal, Ireland, Italy, Greece, and Spain. You need them. Because if you had the northern euro, that would go to $3 or $4 per euro, right? You'd be completely priced out of every export market in the world. You'd undergo a depression. And the South euro would go down to 5 cents on the dollar, or 5 cents on the euro. You could buy a euro for 5 American cents, and that wouldn't be so good either. So there is a logic to the euro, and meddlers who are just arriving on the scene should please back off. Now, Varoufakis last Friday had an interview. I believe it's the Canadian program As It Happens. Now let's listen to Varoufakis. He says, the General Motors bailout might be a good way for people in North America to understand the situation in Greece. What was it? You recall, old General Motors and old Chrysler had gone bankrupt, primarily through derivatives, but generally as a result of plummeting car sales in the derivatives panic, the world derivatives panic of 2008. So these two companies were put through a mix, really, of Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection, Chapter 7 liquidation, and they were given debtor-in-possession financing by the U.S. government, some by the Canadian government. Some of this came from the TARP, the Troubled Asset Relief Program. But let's just look at what happened to the bondholders, okay? Because that's the idea, right, with this debt question. The secured bondholders of Chrysler Corporation got 29 cents on the dollar. So Varoufakis is offering 50 cents on the dollar. I would take that, because if you had Chrysler bonds, you'd be getting 29 cents on the dollar. Back in a minute on World Crisis Radio. Bailout of 2009 and the Chrysler bailout of 2009 with the proposed haircut, the cutting in half, writing off of half of Greece's current $320 billion debt. Now remember, there are only 11 million Greeks. So if it's 320 billion euros, this comes out to about 34,000 euros per person. Is too much. And remember the proposals, right? The average pension with the Syriza program is to raise that pension from about 575 euros per month to 750 euros per month. And it's going to take a lot of months to get 34,000 euros. So that's unsustainable. That was done by these cretinous advisors. One of the good things Varoufakis did was to fire a bunch of pro-IMF consultants and other parasites who were working for the finance ministry and bring back the cleaning ladies. A little bit of economic justice, a little bit of class-conscious economic policy. It's a good idea. So, once again, Chrysler bondholders in the 2009 bailout got 29 cents on the dollar. Now, the General Motors process is a little bit more complex, but it looks to me like some General Motors bondholders, and Chrysler had more bonds proportionally than General Motors. The General Motors bondholders got something like 30 cents on the dollar, so about the same. But we do have stories of a woman at the height of the crisis in 2009, who goes on CNN and saying she had $70,000 worth of GM bonds, and this was cut down to $200 worth of stock, although I think some of that has gone up, but it didn't go back to 70,000. And during the course of the bailout, during 2009, in the early days of the Obama administration, a bunch of hedge funds came out and said, hey, we want our money back 100 cents on the dollar. And Obama held a press conference in April 2009 where he said, you hedge funds are profiteers. Maybe that can put the whining of the various, European Central Bank and similar institutions, put that in perspective. The UAW pension plan, supposedly getting a sweetheart deal, they got 40 cents on the dollar. So you see. Now, there have even been Greek haircuts. The principle of the haircut has been accepted by the European Commission and the European Central Bank. There was, for example, in 2012, a haircut. This is a write-down of European debt. It was supposed to be 54%. But this was directed against the private holders of government bonds. So it